The Pulse is coming to you live from our studio in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Also live on GoTV channel 144, DSTV channel 421, and on digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air. Coming up, Electric Commission announces decision to deploy registration officials to senior high schools to register final year students as part of the ongoing voters' ID registration exercise. Also, John Mahama defends his choice of Professor Nana Jenopokwa-German as running mate. Ghana procures 500,000 PCR test kits for COVID-19. The Noguchi Memorial Institute says it will help clear the backlog of 7,000 samples and can test up to 15,000 samples in a week. And for the past 24 hours, a joy ballot box has been placed at the forecourt of Hohoi Central Police Station, plus the Hohoi and Kwando Municipal Assemblies will engage the team in Hohoi as we prepare for the first joy ballot box tomorrow. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Remember, we're also streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. And do join us with your comments also on 0540109009. Welcome back to The Pulse. Many thanks for choosing us. There are mixed reactions from political parties as Electric Commission decides to move personnel into senior high schools to register students for the ongoing voters' ID registration. The Electric Commission at an emergency inter-party advisory committee meeting Thursday told political parties about its decision to begin registering the students from tomorrow, Friday, July 10 to Saturday, July 11. Even though the exercise, if carried through, will be a breach of the regulation governing the ongoing registration exercise, the Electric Commission is confident of finding a way around it. Latif Idris was at the headquarters of the Commission and has come through with this report.
Some parties have already come out. IDEC says it's observed but is unable to share its opinion on this particular matter.
It's not a secret about registration of the schools, of the secondary schools. So they are coming. They just, you know, it's a very simple message. The final year students in SHS are on campus. The question is, because of the COVID-19, even parents are not allowed. How do you register them? So the EC has made a very special arrangement to go to those campuses that have no registration centers to register them. That's the main thing.
And that has been agreed by all political parties?
Apart from NDC, which raised certain problems. According to the NDC, the constitutional instrument governing registration says that a registration center must be gazetted. Those schools that they are moving to, they have not been gazetted. It will not be it will be a legal breach of the regulations. But the majority of the participants disagreed. Yes.
And as an observer, you also agree with the Electoral Commission?
I would like to go there.
You want to share your position?
When some of us we speak, because the EC has taken a decision, and as we speak now, today is when, on the 9th, they are starting the processes tomorrow. And you call for an emergency IPAC meeting today. Meanwhile, you have taken your decisions already. And so how do we come to speak to the issues? It means that you just want us to come and become rubber stamps. And some of us, we've been always telling...
Put that rubber stamp on it?
I didn't agree to it because I don't see the reason or the logic or the sense in going to the various secondary schools to register, whereas their own parents are not being allowed to go and visit them. And I think it's bad. Then the worst of all, those centers are not being gazetted. And that is where every time we talk about this current EC, when they want to embark on something, they don't discuss with the political parties. So at the end of the day, they do things on their own. And then they just want us to come around and then it looks as if We were all part of it.
Well, it is still a mystery what the EC wants to achieve in this country and what they want to achieve with this election. It is very bizarre. You have the case whereby you invite us to tell us that of all the gazetted registration centers where we will do the registration, where the registration is underway, you are going to send the machines to every single secondary school so that you can register the students as well in the schools. Now the law says that every station that you send a machine to register must be a gazetted registration, and it should be a polling station. The law does not stop the Electoral Commission from creating additional centers, but you must follow the law and gazette those centers before you send a machine there. They are telling us that from tomorrow they are sending some of the machines to every secondary school to go and register them when they are not gazetted centers, when by law they don't qualify to register anybody there. So by extension, what you are saying is that they can even move the machine to somebody's room in the night beyond the gazetted time that ends at 6 p.m. and register people, and that is wrong. That is completely wrong.
What is the NDC's position? You just said your position is completely...
I think that we must always remember that we are not in normal times. If you look at the centers that has been designated as registration centers, there are a few of them that are secondary schools already. There are a few of them that are universities already. And you must also remember that these are final year students, which numbers over 1.2 million. We, as a government, have decided that in order to protect these students, even parents should not visit them. We are not allowing other people from outside to visit them. If we are not able to provide them with the opportunity to be able to register, what it means is that they may either have to go outside, which will increase the risk of getting infected with the pandemic. So I think that it is an arrangement that is looking at the dynamics on the ground. They've already said, my little challenge that I was going to have is whether or not they were going to designate a new center altogether, because that will fly in the face of the law. That will not be legal. But what they have agreed, just as they have mobile registration kits, that at any given point in time, if people are cramming up at a polling station, they move in to augment and help the polling station in registering people, that they use the registration numbers of the centers they go. In this case, they are also going to use registration numbers of polling stations that are nearby the school, in order not to create a new center altogether that would be against the CI
so that these stations will not be gazetted. They will, for the lack of a better word, benefit from existing polling stations.
They will benefit from existing polling stations, because if they are to gazette it now, it has to take about 21 days, which may end up, by the time 21 days elapses, the registration exercise is over. So this is a stopgap measure. I know, because the decision to get the students go back to school was not taken before the decision of Electoral Commission gazetting the polling stations. Other than that, they will have added it up. You understand? So we are in an emergency situation, and I believe that the Electoral Commission should make sure that we don't flout any law, because we don't want a situation where last minute somebody somewhere may decide to take the Electoral Commission on or through the court process. By this, if they really stick to the fact that they are using the mobile registration approach, then it will be legal.
But it will be happening in the schools?
It will be happening in the schools.
So what is the party's position with regards to this request by the Electoral Commission?
I think that is good. The Electoral Commission is taking decisions that are dynamic in order to resolve the problems we are having, because you can't disenfranchise close to 1.2 million will-be voters. I don't think that there's any political party that will agree with such a session. If that is so, what is the way forward? Are we to allow the students to move outside their campuses to nearby polling stations to register? I don't think it is wise to do that. What is wise in order to reduce the risk of our students being affected by coronavirus is to create a center for them, and that's exactly what the Electoral Commission has done.
But there are no fears that when you move into these schools to register, the children will come out in their numbers, and this could also raise the risk of them contracting.
Even as they bring the center there, we still have to observe the social distance protocols. We must be hygienic. Already in all the centers, they have the guns that they check the temperature of people. They have sanitizers available. The schools, the students already have face masks and things like that. So the fact that they are going to open a registration does not mean we are going to lose guard or the protocols that we need to.
Because the concern is that already we are having cases emerging in the various schools, and now we are going to go ahead with this registration. It could complicate and make the situation even worse.
You see, it's all about resources. If we had unlimited resources, we would have decided to even test all the students before they go back. Because obviously, I don't think that the students got the virus from the school. They may have brought it from their homes to the place, and in the process may affect other people and all that.
We can't be certain about that.
But what can you be certain about?
We don't know.
So, because nobody, the school don't have coronaviruses in the schools. The whole school was fumigated and all that, you understand? So if there are some now, it means that people brought them from their homes, either the students or the teaching staff or something. That's the plausible explanation that you can give, you understand? So I think that in as much as we will have wished that nothing like that set up or starts, we will ask the school authorities to still ensure that the safety protocols are observed. We are not in normal times, and people should not take it for granted at all. So I think that this is just a stopgap measure in order to make sure that these students are not unnecessarily disenfranchised.
Finally, before you go, General, are you unhappy that this meeting wasn't conclusive?
Who says it wasn't conclusive? It was conclusive. We discussed it. Each political party made its views. We ended the meeting. It wasn't conclusive. What was it? Are we coming back to discuss again? The whole thing is starting tomorrow and tomorrow next. So it wasn't conclusive. Are we coming back again? We discuss it. And in a meeting like that, you can have a position that's different from the position of others. I disagreed a bit with the Electoral Commission. I disagree with the NDC as well. So what do you mean by it's all conclusive? We concluded.
That's the sense I'm getting from your opponent.
Which opponents? They, I know, will obviously kick against students registering.
Why do you say so?
Why? Because in this country, I used to be national youth organizer of the New Patriotic Party. In all campuses throughout the country, including Ho Polytechnic, we won the elections there. So if you are having a situation that you want to register at secondary schools, where you not to even talk about beneficiaries of SHS,
to be an adult graduate.
You understand, which the NDC know that is their Waterloo. Even before then, it is. So kicking against is something that if they had not done that, I would be surprised.
Wow.
I would be surprised if they had not kicked against this measure of the Electoral Commission to find ways of getting our brothers and sisters and our children in registering. I would have been surprised. So it is no news at all for some of us. It's normal for the NDC to kick against. But they know they will always lose on campuses, including secondary schools. So I have no difficulty with that at all.
That is a very ridiculous claim. Because why? If you know you are going to win all the votes, let them register through the legal process, not through an illegal process. What we are speaking against is an illegality. It is not about winning anybody's votes. They know very well that they are losing this election. All this surreptitious move together with the EC to perpetuate illegality and do things that are against the law is just to secure them the victory that they are not going to get.
Many of you have been commenting on our Facebook page. Let's look at some of the comments you've been posting on this story. Ben Simon says, must there be voting even in the midst of this COVID pandemic? I believe Ekwe Adonko gave a very good suggestion, and if considerations can be made in that area, it will go a long way to help. Do politicians even think about the welfare of the citizens or power? Daniel Israel Agbesi says they want to do this because of free SHS by getting more students to vote. Incompetent EC. Otinga Ponsa Enoch says this is exactly why schools were reopened. We live in a country where priority is given to votes over human lives. God have mercy. Oh, and Ebenezer Mensah says EC should note that dead people do not vote. It is now clear the motive and rationale for keeping SHS students in school. It will end up in tears. And Lamin Adinan says this EC are incompetent. What documents are they going to use to register? And will the EC test registration officials every day? And how many days will it take for the test results to come out? Ghana has a bad leadership. Kojo Phil says, my nation is really bleeding. Should they not at this time test all of them to confirm those positive cases to enable them to quarantine those positive ones? Stephen Kwabena, and he writes more, quite a mouthful there, and he says people are home, redundant and hungry, all in the name of this COVID-19, but our leaders are misleading. Stephen Kwabena Etu says this is their plan since day one. With the reports of infections in some of these schools, should this risk be extended further? Isaac Ofosuhene, we knew it all along, so I'm not surprised. Let the EC register the trees, vehicles, dogs, urinals, tables, and chairs in the schools. NDC Plan B will neutralize all their effort. The students have seen their nonsense and will never vote for Nanado. And still on the voters' registration, social distancing continues to remain a challenge in the Ododo-Dudu constituency, specifically the I Am Church Registration Center. JoyNews observed that majority of the applicants were wearing masks but were not respecting the social distancing directives. Maxwell Agbagba has been speaking to the registration officers at some centers there and now reports.
What we are facing here right now is the social distance, but as you can see, everybody is in the nose mask. Apart from that one, we have no problem. Hand washing is going on. The sanitizing too is also going on very smoothly. Yeah.
Thank you very much for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
Okay. So you just had a registration officer at this particular center, which is the place where the aged, lactating mothers and then vulnerable persons can actually come and then to do their registration. It's really quick. You can see how the crowd is actually gathered. You can see how they are not spaced out, but a lot of them are wearing their masks, with just a few of them not wearing theirs. I see about 4 people not wearing their mask, sitting very close. Yeah. Let's speak to the registration officer here. Let's find out how the process is going.
It's going successfully. Well, I think the number is increasing every day, but our number is increased. But we are also trying, and we are also registering. The total number of registration is going up.
Okay. I'm quite impressed that majority of the people here are wearing their masks, but don't you think they are sitting too close?
Yeah. We tell them to observe the social distancing, but it's like when they scatter, then some people they will come. At the end of the day, they will not be able to capture them, to register them. They will ask them to go, and when the day break, they have to come. But when you come and ask them to be on the queue, most of them is like they are not following the instruction. So we try to let the security monitor them. So now I can see the number is reducing small. We'll give them the queue numbers to come. If you come and you are not able to register, then we'll give you the queue number. Then when the day break, you come on time. We'll tell you to come on time. When you come on time, then we'll ask them, the security man will ask them to be on the queue so that they will observe the social distancing. I think that is what we are doing here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. What's your name?
I'm Honorable Peter Kwei, the Assembly Member for this electoral area.
Oh, fantastic. I am let me once again say that I'm impressed by how they are wearing their mask, majority of them I should say, but social distancing is not working here.
It's very true. Every morning I normally come around to arrange the queue very well. But the reason why the social distancing is not taking place here is that, you see, the previous registration that we've had so far in the whole constituency and then the electoral area as well, normally the registration takes place around all the polling centers. But this one is based on cluster basis, like 6 electoral areas at the same time. But if we have this machine on all the various electoral areas, like we will not get these people all here.
And on your election headquarters, Ghana is losing the fight to keep COVID-19 under control, despite being praised by the WHO and other international bodies at the start of the outbreak. This morning, public health experts say the country's approach appears to have failed. Latest figures by the Ghana Health Service is the 4th consecutive data released, where Ghana has recorded more COVID-19 cases than Germany, Norway, Sweden and Denmark combined. So is Ghana in the crisis mode yet? Head of our health desk, who's himself battling COVID-19, has been finding some answers.
To bring back our economy back to life. What we do not know is how to bring people back to life.
That was President Akufo-Addo's speech as he announced lockdowns in Accra, Kumasi and contiguous cities at the end of March. That action caught the attention of the international community with praise from the WHO, the World Bank and in fact the United Nations. Ghana at this time had just 58 cases of COVID-19 and 3 deaths, all of them Ghanaians who had returned into the country from abroad. But just 4 months down the line, the case is completely different. The restrictions have been significantly relaxed, whilst those still in force, such as the wearing of face masks, social distancing and hygiene practices, are all being disregarded. Today, cases are almost hitting 23,000 with 129 deaths. But experts say this situation could worsen as hundreds of health workers are also affected, reducing the country's capacity to deal with the virus. At the moment, treatment facilities are stretched beyond capacity and the impact has been direct on the country. The president himself is in isolation, the Chief Justice, the senior minister and many others, including health professionals, have had to stay away from work. 2 key government appointees have even died. Now the situation is getting to state institutions. Power producer VRA's facilities at Akuse and Akonsombo have also been affected. The Supreme Court has had to shut down, whilst the BOST, which oversees the distribution of fuel across the country, has also been affected. Yesterday, the Ghana Education Service confirmed that as many as 13 senior high school students have tested positive just 2 weeks after schools were reopened. And if there are 2 activities driving up the cases, it will be the ongoing political activity and voter registration exercise. Kwata by June, it was a joke, but July has been worse. Are we in the crisis situation yet?
Now, Ghana has procured 500,000 PCR test kits for COVID-19, according to the head of Virology Department at Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, Professor William Ampofo. When the inputs arrive, the backlog of cases will be cleared and the nation can test up to 15,000 samples in a week. Recently, it emerged that the nation was facing difficulty in procuring reagents for testing, so a backlog of 7,000 samples had built up and all testing facilities, apart from the Noguchi, had closed down. Speaking this morning at the Information Ministry's press briefing, Professor Ampofo said the situation will soon change.
The first activity we set out to do was to strengthen the current PCR testing capacity in Ghana. PCR, as you know, is the polymerase chain reaction. This is the direct detection of the virus that is associated with COVID-19 by a molecular method. So what we did was we identified facilities that had these PCR machines. You've heard about them, my institute, Noguchi, ACCR in Kumasi. We also have the CSR in Accra. We have the Public Health Reference Lab in Accra. We have the Veterinary Services Director that has 3 testing centers throughout Accra, Laboni, Itakradi, Pong Tamale. We also have a Public Health Lab in Tamale. We have the Konfanoche Teaching Hospital that also has a PCR lab. And so all these facilities have come together to form the lab testing network with PCR for Ghana. What we've done is that we have provided training, we have strengthened the ability to conduct testing, and these have been kind of strategic. So we've covered the southern part of Ghana, we've covered the middle part of Ghana, covered the northern part of Ghana. So the plan is to ensure each region has PCR testing going forward. And I'm glad to report that we are on track with this, because to ensure continuous testing, the plan was to ensure that there was sufficient laboratory supply to go along with providing surveillance support and also for case management, that is clinical cases. And you just heard from Tabuaji details of the surveillance and also the case management effort. Of course, all this data is because the lab has been able to confirm the suspected cases and also provide the backup for the management of patients. So we did come up with a bulk procurement scheme to provide sufficient resources to up to 300,000 tests. This scheme was developed in conjunction with the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health, with support from the Ministry of Finance. And we were strategic enough to go direct to the source, to China, where most of the laboratory equipment and supplies could be competitively sourced. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through its China, has worked on behalf of the people of Ghana to source this equipment at a competitive price and to purchase it in bulk. So I'm glad to report that the first shipment arrived on Saturday with the flight that, using the strategy of the flight that brought back the returnees. So we did get a significant quantity of labs on Saturday. Another flight arrives today, so we get more supplies. And finally, the rest of the bulk shipment is scheduled to arrive in Addis Ababa tomorrow, making arrangements with Ethiopian Airlines to fly this into as soon as possible. So you can see that we actually have I can just give you some of the figures. We have about 150,000 swabs, sample collection medium. We have over 100,000 KN95 masks. We have over 700,000 nitrile exhalation gloves. We have 260,000 autoclave bags. We have PCR tests to do 500,000 tests. We also have microcentrifuge tubes, we have cryo vials, we are buying new PCR machines, and we're also buying what we call glove boxes that will enable us to do some work in some of the labs. So we've put together a comprehensive program which has been funded by the Ministry of Finance to support the labs to provide PCR testing.
Let's still talk about COVID-19, but this time focus on front health line workers. At least 779 health workers have tested positive for COVID-19, which according to the joint health unions is as a result of inadequate PPEs for frontline health workers. The unions say 190 members of the GMA, 410 nurses, 156 members of the Health Services Workers Union and 23 members of Pharmacists Association make up the number of infected health personnel. 9 have unfortunately lost their lives. The group wants government to regularly supply all healthcare workers with PPEs to prevent a breakdown of Ghana's healthcare delivery in the coronavirus season. The unions are urging the government to have a quick relook at who qualifies to be a frontline health worker, as most of its members that have contracted the virus are not in the frontline category. Dr. Frank Ankopia is president of the Ghana Medical Association.
This address was by the various unions, health sector unions and associations, professional associations. We came together because our people are suffering. The rate at which doctors and nurses and other health service workers union are getting infected is at an alarming rate. Can you imagine 779 150 doctors, 410 nurses. In fact, already we've lost 4 doctors. We've lost 3 nurses. We've lost 3 health services workers union members and all that. And we think this is unacceptable. So we organized this press conference to come out with some of the reasons why these things might be happening and to draw the attention of government and the attention of the public to it that, one, COVID-19 is real. We, the health workers who are fighting COVID-19, are being affected by the virus now. So we needed to make people aware that it is real. So if they allow themselves to be infected by not abiding by the safety protocols, what will happen is that they will eventually bring it to the hospital and will be affected. And if care is not taken, there will come a point when by the time they come to the hospital, they won't have anybody to look after them, including also people with other diseases who won't come in because most of us will then be in quarantine. And then we wanted to still appeal to government that the personal protective equipment must be made readily available. We should have them in abundance in the hospitals. There are challenges like some of the drugs may, every now and then, we may not have access or we may not have some of the drugs available every now and then. And that is why we are appealing to government to make sure all these things are there. We spoke about definition of frontline health worker. From our statistics, most of the people who have become infected do not fall into that criteria. And so we're asking government to take a second look at the definition of the frontline health worker. All staffs, all health workers. We thought that it should be broadened out to include all health workers. That is what we are saying. Because the statistics that we have, those who have, most of those who have become infected do not fit the definition of the frontline health worker. So it means there are people who are not considered as frontline health workers and yet are getting infected. And these people are more over and above those who fall into that category. So government must have a second look at the definition.
A member of the COVID-19 National Trust Fund, Gifta Afenyi-Dadzie, has disclosed the fund has accrued 53,911,000 Ghana cedis as at the end of June. She says the trust fund has disbursed more than half of what it has received and is still donating. Madam Afenyi-Dadzie disclosed this when she donated PPEs to 6 treatment centers in the 5 regions of the north. She appealed to all to continue to support the fund to serve its mandate. Madam Afenyi-Dadzie says the trust fund has donated some cars to some selected health and laboratory facilities, which includes the Tamale Teaching Hospital. Thus, she says, is to help combat the COVID-19 pandemic. The PPEs included thermometer guns, examination gloves, among others. Madam Gifta Afenyi-Dadzie says the items forms part of a consignment worth 10 million Ghana cedis to be disbursed to institutions and individuals who are directly engaged in the combat of COVID-19 across the country, adding the National Commission for Civic Education has received an amount of 2.5 million Ghana cedis to support in a nationwide education and sensitization campaign on COVID-19 in collaboration with the Ghana Medical Association.
I wish to disclose that the trust fund has received donations in cash and checks totaling 53 million Ghana cedis, 911 pounds, as at the end of June this year. This amount includes the cedi equivalent of $606,300 US. You will all notice from the disbursement and commitment made as against the total donations received that the trust fund has disbursed more than half of the contributions received so far and is still disbursing. This requires that we put all hands on deck to raise more funds to enable the trust fund to continue to discharge its mandate. I'm therefore using this opportunity to to appeal to all Ghanaians, individuals, groups, churches, NGOs, corporate bodies, and the general public to continue to make contributions to support the trust fund in both cash and in kind, to enable it to continue to discharge its mandate of helping those who are infected with or affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, especially the needy and the vulnerable in the society. Please, you can make your contributions through our collection accounts, namely COVID-19 Trust Fund account at any branch of the DCB, at any branch of the DCB bank. The account number is 10-111-8000-1808. Account number again is 10-111-8000-1808.
The Northern Regional Minister Salifu Said says the Northern region has been successful in containing the spread of the virus because of the hard work of the medical teams and all stakeholders tasked to fight the pandemic, adding that Tamale Health Laboratory serves over 5 regions in the country and appeals to the COVID-19 Trust Fund to continue to support the lab.
The security agencies in our part of the country, they have worked closely with the health professionals in our part of the country to make sure that anytime they needed to go to public places, either to do disinfection or talk about the COVID issue, they need them to also come and support. They have been very supportive. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to use this opportunity to appeal to the National COVID-19 Trust Fund that the Tamale Public Health Laboratory, which is a referral one, of course, it needs more support, and all the regions, that is the 5 regions of the North, they need more of your support, given the fact that this lab here is servicing not only the 5 regions of the North, but 3 regions from both Ron and Hafu, they are also coming here, apart from the fact that people from the Sahelian countries, even though our borders are closed, some of them, the lockdown caught them up and they couldn't leave. So any one of them, when they need health care or laboratory, more than one to test whatever samples, it is here that they will come.
We're still live on The Pulse. Remember, we are free to air because we are in digital terrestrial TV. We're also live on GoTV channel 144 and DSTV channel 421. We're back shortly with more on The Pulse. Welcome back to The Pulse. To the rest of our stories, we're going straight to the Ashanti region, where police in Kumasi have arrested a suspected serial fraudster believed to have infiltrated the ranks of the Ghana Police Service. Francis Ayambila has been using the name of the Upper West Regional Deputy Commander to defraud unsuspecting members of the public, some of them judges and lawyers. He was picked up after he struck acquaintance with a High Court judge and succeeded in stealing his car. Police officers who came to the scene of his arrest told Love News the suspect has been part of several police operations disguised as service persons. Love FM's Rastas Asari Donko spent some time with the suspect and has filed this report.
Investigators say Francis Ayambila, who hails from Bugiri, near Boko in the Upper East region, is already facing criminal charges in different courts. They include attempted stealing, impersonation, assault, and defrauding by false pretenses. He admitted to using Upper West Police Deputy Commander ACP Indebugri's name to defraud unsuspecting members of the public for the past 3 years.
I took some other money, say I look him to police, 500 Ghana cedis. With the I go where police this year they will go under case.
They say you've been posting as a police officer. Which police officer is that?
There's a time I went to Accra with one of my friend. That's my I don't know if I just seen a brother. Philip Quena, he took me to Mr. Nebugri. I got to know him. So when I got to know him, so my brother gets a case to him prisons. So that's the reason I just take the man as my father and everything.
So he's been... Investigators provided evidence of him in police uniform on many operations and other security activities.
So he's been part of police operations?
Yes, he's been doing it. So you know this man? You know he's a commander.
He's a commander. He said he's going
to him.
Ask what?
He comes and gives him money. And I know he's a constable.
Ask what?
Fall out from duty.
During Otum Force Mother's funeral,
yeah,
he was in police uniform performing duties.
I receive.
Ayambila introduced himself as the son of ACP Indebugri to win the confidence of a High Court judge. He later took the judge's vehicle under the pretext of spraying it, but disappeared for 3 days until his arrest on Wednesday. Police will not issue any immediate statement, but want members of the public who have fallen victim to Ayambila's nefarious activities to file formal complaints for appropriate action. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Kumasi.
Now, hope may finally be on the horizon for scrap metal dealers in Agbogloshi here in Accra. The Environmental Protection Agency has begun a process to have e-waste bought from scrap dealers and to have them processed under healthy conditions. At a stakeholders meeting here in Accra, EPA boss David Pwaman said the project forms part of implementation of the law passed in 2016 to address the menace.
This is one of the world's most poisonous sites, Agbogloshi, where your electronic gadgets come to die. Computers, refrigerators, wires, TV sets, you name it, all in hot, blazing fire.
The boys who work here have come mainly from northern Ghana and work from dawn to dusk, breaking their back in this toxic smoke. But the real people who pay the price for the waste they leave here run into the hundreds of thousands.
One of them is Hanan Yusuf, who came here aged 14 and has been working for more than 10 years.
Like this work, if you work it at any time at all, you will be feeling malaria. You'll be feeling malaria and your body will be hot. Even when you bath, you won't see it unless you just go to some drugstore and buy some malaria medicine and take.
And now change seems to be on the horizon. The Environmental Protection Agency is opening a new dawn to change the way and manner in which e-waste materials are collected and processed.
We sampled about 100 workers in this scrap yard and looked at their urine and their blood samples. And we analyzed for 12 heavy metals. And the results were just, alarming, which shows the kind of the pollution level in the area and how this is affecting health. So we have done all this work, so we know a lot about what goes on here.
Through a new project that the EPA is embarking on, a center is going to be created in the Agbogloshi enclave to buy these e-waste materials from scrap dealers and fix machines that would ensure that they are safely processed and the best of copper extracted from the scraps that are collected.
All the burning should stop. Burning of sawdust, burning of coconut husk, burning of lorry tires, to shin hides of animals, burning of lorry tires to recover metals, steel, to sell to the steel mills, burning of refrigerator foams, burning of plastic, casings of refrigerators and other electrical gadgets, burning of electric motors to soften them so as to be able to remove copper from them, burning in the evening, burning in the night, so as to avoid when people are around. All these acts are prohibited by law.
With this project, the EPA seeks to enforce Section 12A of the Hazardous and Electronic Waste Control and Management Act, passed in 2016, which mandates it to monitor the management of hazardous waste and other wastes in order to prevent any harmful effect of these waste materials on human health and the environment. This will not be the first attempt at addressing the e-waste menace in the Agbogloshi enclave, and players in this space will be keen on finding out what difference this new intervention would make. Justice Bedu, JoyNews, Accra.
Let's do more on your election headquarters, because former President John Dramani Mahama has been speaking for the first time about his choice of a running mate, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. On Monday, the former education minister was announced as a running mate for the NDC presidential candidate. Mr. Mahama says the decision to settle on a woman to partner him demonstrates the NDC's commitment to ensuring more women are part of the governance system. Speaking at the inauguration of the party's national campaign team yesterday in Accra, Mr. Mahama touted the achievements of his running mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we couldn't have made a better choice. Nana Jane is an accomplished woman who has made her mark both nationally and internationally. And it is my belief that as a social democratic party, and a progressive party at that, if any party must be positioned in the history of our country to create the opportunity for women to serve in the highest offices of the land, then is no other party than the National Democratic Congress. We have in the course of the life of our party, and in periods when we've been in government, giving opportunity to women to serve in some of the highest offices of the land. We've had chief justices who are women. We've had speakers of parliament who are women. We have attorney generals who are women. We have foreign ministers who are women. We have accountant generals who have been women. We've had prison directors who have been women. Indeed.
Away from former President Mahama, the Ashanti Regional Police Command has warned it will deal ruthlessly with political party agents and others who misconduct, disrupts the ongoing voter registration exercise. Regional Deputy Commander DCOP David Ajiman-Ajem observes the exercise is already characterized by tension created by the two main political parties, the NPP and the NDC. Ohim Interior has more in the following report.
The warning comes as police arrest a group of NDC supporters at Santase last Thursday. Police say the group had attempted to seize registration equipment of the Electoral Commission when a police patrol team swiftly arrived to arrest them. DCOP Ajiman-Ajem says the command is enforcing to the latter a RESEC directive prohibiting people from massing up at the registration centers to cause chaos.
The Regional Security Council has come up with a number of measures, including people not riding close to a polling station, people not massing up at the polling stations and things like that. We are enforcing them. We have a number of patrol teams who are patrolling the city. And so when we come to the polling stations and people misconduct themselves, we ensure that the law takes its course. I think there was another incident in one of the communities where some persons were party people. The two parties had differences, and one party decided to hijack the process by attempting to seize the EC equipment. They were swiftly arrested, and they are still in custody.
The deputy commander says police are keeping an eye on hotspots like Aswasi, where some NDC agents were arrested for alleged illegal possession of registration forms.
We know the hotspots in Kumasi. We know that Asokori Mampo and the sitting MP and the MC have had their own back and forth on radio. But we are not concerned with that. As I've said, this is a national exercise, and we want it to remain a national exercise. If anybody has a problem, the problem has to be addressed to the Electoral Commission. So nobody, as I'm told by the EC, must not be prevented from registering. But if there are political party people there who have problems with that person, they must fill a form. But nobody will be allowed to mar the exercise. We will not allow that to happen in this region. We will not allow that. We will deal with that person and make sure that the law takes its course.
Meanwhile, the command warns people who flout mask wearing and other COVID-19 safety protocols risk arrest and prosecution. DCOP Ajiman Ajem says more personnel will be deployed at the registration centers on the streets to enforce the regulations. The warning comes as police arrest 2 people for failing to wear face masks and adhere to other safety protocols. The ongoing voter registration exercise has been characterized by continued flouting with impunity COVID-19 preventive measures. An executive instrument signed by President Akufo-Addo on June 15, 2020, makes wearing of face masks or shields in public mandatory. Offenders risk up to 10 years imprisonment or a fine of between 12,000 and 60,000 Ghana cedis. It authorizes police to make random checks to ensure enforcement compliance. DCOP Ajiman Ajem says there's still work to be done at the registration centers despite police enforcement operations.
It becomes criminal if we come and find somebody not wearing their face mask. Very soon, you see a lot more persons being arrested. So people must ensure that when they go to the police stations, they shall wear a face mask. Otherwise, they will force us to arrest and prosecute them.
From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Ohime Interior reporting.
I'm back in the studio. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Let's get women there are saddened that their underdeserved children would have to compete with privileged ones from the cities to write the same exams in the absence of community libraries, lack of ICT, tools and decent education infrastructures. Queen Mother of Wuli Agoviefe, also the Vice President of the Hohoe Municipal Council of Queens, poured out her frustration JoyNews ahead of the maiden edition of this year's Joy Ballot Box coming up tomorrow at Hohoe.
The various communities, they should go there and find out what they need before they promise, so that we can hold them responsible when it is not done. They should first of all go into the communities, and especially those who might win or vying for our votes. They should find out the things that we need, not they imposing things on us. Maybe there are things that we need most in our communities. Maybe suppose like they are more important, though we might need that thing also, but there are more important things to us in the various communities. So they should seek our concern. Especially my concern is about the politicians. Normally, we the Queen Mothers are not valued. Mostly, I may say, mostly we are not, they normally just go to our paramount chiefs, settle on the paramount chiefs, and then they don't try to seek our consent, because we are concerned about the children and then the, how do I say, disabled. They don't, I mean, they don't factor the children's issue and then the disabled issues. They don't factor them mostly into their campaigns and whatever promises they are making. I think those are the most, especially the children. The issues of children should be more paramount, and then the disabled. And then we, the women too, we suffer the most. So most of the things should be targeted towards we, the mothers, the children, and the disabled in the communities. Yeah.
I can see you are very passionate about the politicians focusing on women and children. You mentioned peace. I want to believe there are more things you expect them to do for this group. Beyond the issue of they not paying attention to you as a queen mother or queen mothers, in involving you probably in decision making or even things which are of concern to you. Which other things would you say are on your heart you think that these politicians should be seeking your consent for or your attention before they go ahead to even ask for your vote?
Okay. Because I'm mostly concerned about the children, because in most communities, even in Wohwe town here, we don't have recreational facilities for children. And libraries are limited. Maybe it's only in Wohwe here that you get a library. Our villages, most of us come from the villages. We don't have those things in our villages, maybe internet facilities. And then these same children go to write the same exams with those who are advantaged. And the disadvantaged ones are there. They all go to write the same exams. And then those things are, in fact, is discriminatory to me. The government should, especially the internet facilities, should go into the villages where there are schools that write the same exams with those in the cities and the center distance. It's difficult, yeah, because that's why they are not performing. The villages cannot compete with this. So even I am on an educational committee. You can see that those villages couldn't perform, and they are below the expected distance. So I think the government should see to, especially the villages, they shouldn't be focusing more on the towns and the cities, the villages, especially in the education sector. Yeah.
Remember, the Joy Ballot Box will be live on Joy 99.7 FM, also on the Joy News channel and on myjoyonline.com. And it comes up at 5 p.m. tomorrow, July 10. Please make a date with us. We'll take a break on the pulse. When we return, there is more to discuss. Professor of Political Science, Professor Ransford Jampo, is worried not enough public education was done on the new voter registration exercise before its commencement. Interacting with Roland Walker, Professor Jampo said, while the registration is very important, getting the citizenry well informed about its relevance amid the coronavirus crisis would have ensured that the general voter population adhered to protocols at the centers. He also touched on the nomination of Professor Jenano Pokwajaman and its impact on the 2020 elections.
Thank you for joining us. Please make sure that you get interactive. We have Facebook Joy News on TV. We also do have a Twitter handle at Joy News on TV. And you can also watch us live through our YouTube channel, Joy News TV. And as you watch us through these handles, make sure you subscribe. We're here to speak to an associate of political science who works with the University of Ghana. He's a vocal person when it comes to subject of corruption, corporate governance, the governance of our country, and you can always know who he is when I introduce him. We're speaking to Professor Ransford Jampo, and I'll say good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Right, and I see that we're speaking to you within a period when we have a lot of activities ongoing, just to prepare us for the general elections in 2020. the registration that is ongoing. First, let me tease out your own observations after these number of days that we've had this, based on what you've heard, based on what you've observed about how it's going for you.
Well, generally, I was pleasantly surprised that within 1 week, the Electoral Commission said it had been able to register about 2 million Ghanaians. Think was, well, does it mean we are so partisan and we don't care, or does it also mean that we do not know the implications of going to converge around an area just for the purpose of registration in the midst of COVID? But I think generally, because I'm saying this because my earlier prediction was that maybe that prediction will still hold. My earlier view was that you would have a lot of people who may not be able to show up at the registration centers to register because of the fear of contracting COVID-19, and that was my fear. But we've just done 1 week, and so until we are done with the full process, maybe that prediction may hold. But I am quite pleasantly surprised that 2 million Ghanaians have been able to register so far. It means people are either eager to vote or they are eager to use, to get the card as a form of identification. Of course, I went to my hometown. I spoke to quite a number of people, and you talk to them, they tell you that when we go to bank, we don't have identification. And we are waiting for national identification cards. They've registered us, and we haven't had our own. Some are also saying they've not even been registered, and so they don't have any legitimate or valid identification. So they feel that this is an opportunity for them to get some meaningful form of identification. So they've been there. But the most important thing is that for now there's been about 2 million Ghanaians who have registered, and it's something that is quite good, because my fear is that the legitimacy of the register would be in question if it is not able to capture the full complement of Ghanaians who are expected to be on it to serve as a mechanism for voting.
And we do know that the Electoral Commission says that it intends registering between 60 million and 70 million. Now, going forward, one thing that we have noticed, based on what our reporters have said, is that people have not been social distancing, but more so the Electoral Commission has failed to implement these protocols adequately.
Well, I mean, it's something that we predicted, I mean, long ago. It's something that was to be predicted. I said that in the lead up to every election, you have the Electoral Commission telling you that everything is set. You get there and you realize that there is delay in start of polls. You get there and realize that you have shortage of polling materials, and there are some minor hitches that have always characterized the conduct of our elections since 1992. And I keep wondering, I've always wondered, when are we going to get all these things right? And so when they said that they're going to have all the protocols observed and they're going to have all the safety PPEs and other safety devices there, I told them that, well, if experiences over the years will teach us anything, then I doubt. I don't trust what they were saying. And yes, I've been around, visited polling stations, registration centers, and I've seen that the kinds of things that they said they will be doing. Well, I mean, to be fair, certain areas do not have thermometer guns, but most of the areas that I saw had thermometer guns, which was good. But the point is, they have not been able to prevent from converging and from doing things that will make them susceptible to contracting the disease. And I keep saying that it seems to me that in our part of the world, leadership and policymakers do not seem to understand the caliber of citizenry that they are dealing with.
And why do you say that?
I say that because we are a developing country. Okay. One feature of every developing country that qualifies it to be described as a third world country is that oftentimes that country has a population that is ignorant and uninformed. It's a feature. Okay, so unless you understand the caliber of people you are dealing with, You would only, I've heard the Electoral Commission say that, well, they've done what they are supposed to do, and it's up to Ghanaians to be, the Ghanaians are old and matured enough to be able to know how to observe. So
and you have a problem with that?
And I have a problem
because
with that.
You think the Electoral Commission should not be saying that?
It seems that then they don't understand the caliber of people they are dealing with. The caliber of people that constitute a developing country are not well informed. One of the features of every developing country is that it has majority of its citizenry being ignorant. And so you have to do two things. You have to overly educate and sensitize them. That is number one. And number two, you have to ensure rigid enforcement of every protocol or every rule. But you cannot sit down and say, I've said this, and they know, they are adults. They should know what is right. Maybe maybe they don't understand the caliber of people you are governing. I went to my hometown. At a point in time, I had to buy some food stuff. So I went to those people, fishmongers, along the Komantse Abanzi Road. And they were selling to me. I had to cancel them. Why won't you put on your face mask and all? And they made some funny remarks. Said, what do you mean? We don't have coronavirus here. Coronavirus is only a plague of big people in government. That's what they said. I had to spend time educating. The more I spoke to them, the more they saw me as ignorant. Okay, so you have an ignorant citizenry, most of whom reside in the rural hinterlands. And so if you do not appreciate them, that this is the caliber of people I'm dealing with, then look, whatever you do, you are set to fail. Okay, particularly in the midst of fighting COVID-19, and particularly as we try to ensure that we do not have a lot of infected cases.
The Coalition for Domestic Election Observers, they did indicate after a week of observing this registration exercise that it looks like the BVRs were not performing well. And then also the social distancing protocols did indicate that the citizenry were not adequately informed. Now, you have also raised this. What form of education were we anticipating?
Well, let me say this. You were anticipating a certain decentralized form of education that is not centered on national radios and television.
Meaning what, the education should go to the ground?
The education should go to the grassroots, and it should be sustained. You see, one function of the Electoral Commission that it has been abysmal in discharging is public education. In fact, their mandate, part of their mandate is also to serve as agents of political socialization and public education. So when you talk about public education, about issues of elections and registration, the political parties have a role, NCC has a role, the Electoral Commission itself has a role. I heard one or two advertisements and announcements on radio, but I think it was not sustaining enough. And then also, most of these adverts and announcements were centered in the big city centers and others. So if you go to a grassroots, you know that they know next to nothing about some of these things. I mean, you may have one or two wearing face masks, but they do not even appreciate or understand fully the reason why they are wearing face masks. But they wear face masks and pull it over to their chin when they want to talk, and all manner of things. So much close together, stampeding here and there, and you wonder and you ask them, and their responses tell you that, well, indeed, it's a feature of a development. The population itself, majority of them are not too literate, and they are not too knowledgeable about some of these. Understand them. If you understand this, then there should be some rigid enforcement of rules. No, that's number one. And number two, there should be massive and sustained sensitization and public education drive that would ensure that before people go there, they know what they're about and they know how to take care of themselves.
You're one person. We don't even have to come and interact with you physically before we know your thoughts. We just have to go onto your account on social media, on Facebook. You published it 3 days ago, and I would want to read this to you and ask you this preceding post question. To develop our democracy, we must sometimes copy, but to copy, we must only copy best practices. Now, the practice of using bad precedent to justify our current actions when we have the opportunity to do the right thing makes us a weak people. What did you mean by this?
Well, this meant something that is completely different. In fact, what I meant in that post has nothing to do with what we are talking about, unless you want us to divert into that. If you want us to...
what got me interested was the related action of seeing the tenets of democracy and its practice right and copying from the best. And in relating it to this, is that we have the best democracies in the world.
Oh no, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But the way they undertake their actions leading up to how they want to practice their democracy is far better off than what we think we're doing.
No, that's what what you are saying is right, but that's not what I meant. Well, I wanted to say that it was just an insinuation. I just wanted to say that I had heard people saying that Professor Mills asked the then Auditor General, Edward Dia Ajiman, to go on leave, and which I thought then was wrong. And then I had heard some people saying that if the current Auditor General has been asked to go on leave, there's been a precedent. And my argument has been that we must always copy from the best practices, not bogus practices. We have the penchant to look for bad, bogus practices that happened in the past. We are we are so swift and quick to go exhume those practices them now to justify what we want to do wrong today. I think it is disingenuous, and it does not help us move on and progress as a developing country. And so I say, if we want to copy, let's only copy the best practices.
Now, back to our register. As we finalize the discussion on the register, there's a key aspect of actions that have been taken by the Electoral Commission, which seem to have posed a certain distrust between it and the main opposition party, the NDC. The NDC convened a news conference. They raised a litany of issues they have with the current register. They said people were still being prevented from areas they believed were still their dominant areas along the border posts, just because they were maybe bused to registration centers and not allowed, tapped Togolese, and even tapped foreigners. This had been an issue even before the start of the registration exercise. What's your own thoughts about?
No, but the registration is supposed to be meant for Ghanaians.
Definitely.
Okay, so if they are non-Ghanaians, why should anybody entertain non-Ghanaians to register? If they are truly Togolese, then they have no business registering.
What if they are not?
But, no, so if they are not, so then there should be a way of ensuring that the people are not Togolese. It is not, the EC cannot even immediately decide that you are a Ghanaian or you are not. It goes through a certain settlement adjudicative processes.
Yes, we do know
so
that. Yes.
The point is that you cannot just look on somebody's forehead and just say that you are not a Ghanaian or you are a Ghanaian. There are certain processes. And so the practice of just turning people away just on the face of their on their looks and on the face of whatever you have against them shouldn't be so much tolerated. I think there are processes that one will have to go through to determine or to decide whether they are Togolese or they are not. And more importantly, I'm thinking the borders have been closed now, and so nobody should be able to move from another country to our borders, our country, to come and register. And so, well, if there are legitimate concerns that they have raised, I think the EC must interrogate and look into it. Otherwise, you cannot have an EC that will continuously be criticized, or an EC that is always being quarreled with by the main opposition party. It's not too good. Let there be some peace so that the EC can have some peace of mind to go about its duty. So it must look into it, into this matter.
Well, not too long ago, the main opposition party itself adored their running mate. So the flag bearer of the party has adored the first woman running mate for their party. Well, many observers think this is historic. That even though it's not the first time we've had a political party in Ghana nominating a female running mate. What's your own thought on this?
Well, it's historic because Ghana's Fourth Republic has been governed essentially by two main parties, NDC and MPP. And this is the first time you having one of the main parties appointing a female running mate. It's historic because you have the first female vice chancellor of a public university being asked to go partner Professor John Mahama. And it's also historic because if you look at the people who were the key contenders, they were all male. She was the only female, and when we're talking about, when we're doing the analysis and talking about who is likely to be selected, nobody gave her a dog chance. I know only one politician in the MPP who told me that it is going to be an Anopo Kwadman. That's way about a year ago or so. And but subsequently in the discussion, she never featured. And all of a sudden, she's the one who has been selected. I think it is something historic.
What do you think about how she has been received, either on social media, by mainstream observers, or even some connoisseurs like you, professors of political science, so to speak?
Well, generally, level-headed people have received her well. Of course, her own party people will support her, but it is also to be expected that those who belong to the ruling party have also tried to throw some mud, at her and all that. It is to be expected. My disappointment, however, is that there are certain personalities within the ruling party that, in my view, have achieved the level of being described as statesmen. And so I do not expect them to make the kinds of comments about her that the full soldiers are making. She is not an angel. She may have her pluses, but she may also equally have her minuses. And so fair analysis should just look not at her womanhood, but should look at her track record and what she has done.
Is that what you think they're doing? Is it not more a comparison? Her juxtaposing her abilities with what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who has been vice presidential candidate for the MPP since 2008?
No, my argument has been, you see, that is an irrational approach. You see,
why not?
When the MPP at a point in time was looking for a general secretary, and they got what's the name?
Dr. Bawumia.
No, I'm talking about MPP general secretary. They got Sir John of pleasant memory. One of the things that they were saying was that we want somebody who will be able to match Asedu Nketia. I said that is irrational.
Why not?
You must always look for somebody who will be able to match development, somebody who will be able to match the tangible bread and butter issues that affect Ghanaians. And so if you're looking for a running mate, and she happens to be an economist, so be it. Don't forget, Jerry Rawlings never had an economist running mate. J. Kufuor never had an economist running mate. Atta Mills never had an economist running mate. So the phenomenon of having an economist who is a running mate is new. Okay, what should be of interest to all of us? I have a lot of respect for Dr. Bawumia, and when he speaks, you can appreciate that he understands the economic issues. I've always argued that he's the only person who is able to explain things better to my understanding. The rest, when they talk, you don't know what they are talking about. You understand? So I have a lot of respect for him. He's an economist par excellence. But if you are looking for a running mate for another political party, you do not necessarily have to say that I'm looking for somebody who will be able to match Dr. Bawumia. If you do that, you miss the point. It's irrational. You should look for somebody who you will say, as for this person, she understands the bread and butter issues confronting Ghanaians, and he or she has what it takes to help in translating policies into concrete developmental outcomes reflected in the lives of the ordinary people.
Is that why you wrote just a day ago that the MPP does not fall for the trap of committing political suicide by saying nasty things that may be interpreted as an attack on women? It may haunt them later. A critique of her selection must be based only on issues.
Well, precisely. It's a trap. I mean, somebody has selected his running mate. She's a woman.
Do you think they've already started falling for that trap?
Well, I've heard, at least on social media, and there was one high-ranking one, but of course, unfortunately, the person came to explain that I think he was misquoted or something. But I've heard quite a number of people trying to run her down by making comments that, in my view, can be interpreted to mean an attack on womanhood. If you do that, and women decide to form a constituency to protect their own, mind you that they account for over 52% of our population. And so if they decide to vote for their own, then you would have shot yourself.
But you also do understand those 52% of women, voter population age, would all vote on party lines.
In fact, so in my subsequent analysis, I've said that even though a lot of women are hailing her appointment, generally women do not vote for their own because of partisan party political reasons. Unfortunately, women in our part of the world, they don't form one constituency. You see, once they form a constituency, they will say, because she is coming from us, we vote for her. But because of partisan reasons, they are divided. So you will hear a lot of women saying that, well, she's an accomplished scholar, she can do it, but because she's not in my party, I can't vote for her. And so at the end of the day, she would have a lot of work to do if she really wants to court the support of women.
Let me ask you this. What do you think she brings to the table? It's been a big argument over the last 48 hours.
You see, the point is this. If you look at her pedigree, she brings a lot to the table. But I don't want to look at that. What I'm looking at, and in fact, I'm so much expectant, is how she sounds on her first press conference. Okay. At this stage, you see, there are so many people who have the pedigree, there are so many people who have the academic qualifications and all those things, they have achieved a lot. But when you say they should go serve people, they do not have what it takes to serve. And so, at this stage, whether she has what it takes to serve or not depends on what she says during her first press conference. Remember, Barack Obama was nobody. It took the kinds of things he said at their party's Congress for him to be catapulted into the presidency of America. So my point is that if she, let's wait. I'm sure she's going to hold a press conference. Let us see whether she would demonstrate depth. Let us wait to see whether she will demonstrate content. Let us see whether she will demonstrate a firm grasp of the issues, the bread and butter issues that are of utmost concern to Ghanaians. And let us see whether she would be able to articulate a certain policy direction that she will be able to help John Mahama to implement to ensure that people are developed. And when I say people become developed, I'm talking about people's physical quality of life improving. Let us see whether she will be able to articulate those things. If she's able to listen to articulate those things in a manner that is convincing, then people will say, then she's bringing something to the table. I've always said that you have so many scholars, when they talk about national issues, they don't understand or they don't have the grasp. Okay, there are people that you may respect. They have all the achievement. But when you begin to talk about them on matters relating to national politics and what they think about it, you know that the person may be a scholar in her chosen field or his chosen field, but on national issues that borders on ordinary people, they may not have the grasp and all that. So let us see whether she has a grasp. And so for me, her first press conference will be crucial. It
will be very indicative of how you will see the direction as to how she can go.
Yes.
There is a concern that has been expressed. I've seen it widely on some platforms on social media too, that John Dramani Mahama may have been late in selecting a running mate or even get his campaign going. Even though coronavirus aside, he's in opposition, so ideally.
All the political parties were late. The last election, they were all late in the release of their manifestos. It's a creeping phenomenon, being less timeous in releasing of certain important documents and also outdooring certain important things that people would have to be aware to be able to make their mind in determining who they must support. The point is this, the woman that you have out is relatively not a party person. I'm told he's barely 7 years in the NDC as a party. And so for me, if her nomination had come earlier, okay, it would have served the purpose. In that case, you see, she would be able to market herself among the core support base and among all other Ghanaians. She will be known. I mean, you are going to contest with somebody like Baumia, who is now known and all that. And so if she had come a bit earlier, it would have been fine. But, well, better late than never.
Ultimately, how would you want or do you see the election panning out? Looking at the state of COVID, its influence on the state of life, we having a register that is coming at this time where it is coming, and how we hope to see the year out.
Well, I think there are still so many uncertainties, given the rate at which our COVID infection is going. I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow we are told that we should suspend the registration. I wouldn't also be surprised if we are told that because of some reasons, let us rethink whether we want to hold elections or not. Because, you see, key policy makers, key people of influence are now all being infected. And so I want to believe that now that they are recovering, with the experience that they've had, they will be able to proffer certain proactive advice that would make all of us cautious. You understand? And so there are so many uncertainties. Let us wait for a while. Let's give ourselves about 1 more month to see what happens, because now it is becoming scary. I thought we had won the battle over COVID, but it seems to me that the kinds of things that are going on, we are going up day by day. Yesterday alone, I read that now we have about 400 cases on daily basis. We are recording 400 people. And
averagely,
on the average, 400 people a day. And I think, where are we heading towards? Are we heading towards Italy, or do we have the structures, the health facilities to be able to contain some of these things? I don't think we do.
That's a concern.
And so the earlier we act, the better for us.
Well, thank you very much. Professor Ransford Yaw-Gyampo. And what's your address in Salt Point again?
Oh, 831 Prabio, PAV Answer Street.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking to Professor Ransford Yaw-Gyampo. Make sure you check out his account on Facebook. Just in case you haven't heard or watched from him in a while, daily, check there. But he is an associate professor of political science, has been teaching this for over a decade and a half, has great stint in teaching, not only local, but has had great sabbaticals also abroad. But that's what we bring you right here on the AM show. Well, we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll have more for you.
And that was an interview with Professor Gyampo by Roland Walker of the AM team. And they've been talking about a myriad of political issues brewing up as we gear up to the 2020 elections. Let's get on to other stories. But before that, let's take a break on the Pulse. We'll be back shortly. Now to the rest of our stories. And the Conference of Heads of Assisted Second Cycle Schools, CHAS, is promising to prevent a repeat of the KNUST SHS incident. A final year student died after teachers allegedly abandoned him for fear of COVID-19. The headmistress of the school has since been interdicted pending investigations by the Ghana Education Service. Regional President of the group, Reverend Father Stephen Owusu-Sechere, who describes the incident as unfortunate, says school heads have learned their lessons. He tells my colleague Ohime Nteria the heads are prepared to work extra to prevent a recurrence.
The year before the COVID came in, we were the first company to introduce our hand sanitizers, that is the KCL sanitizers.
Apologies for that. We'll try and bring you that story again. But the Bono region has recorded 96 confirmed cases of the coronavirus as of Tuesday, July 7, 2020. According to the Bono Regional Health Directorate, the jump from a case a month ago to 96 depicts a fast-spreading local transmission requiring an end to the blatant disregard for the safety protocols by the people. Updating the media in Sunyani, Acting Bono Regional Health Director Dr. Kofi Amokodie says the figure represents cases in 9 out of the 12 districts, with Wenchi municipality recording 42 cases, while Banda has 1.
A total of 2,949 cases have been suspected of COVID-19, 302 through routine surveillance system, and 2,647 through the enhanced surveillance system. Samples were taken for these persons, of which laboratory feedback have been received for 1,519 samples. There are 1,431 laboratory results that are pending. Banda has 1 case, Brekum East has 2 cases, Brekum West 15 cases, Doma Central cases, German North 10 cases, German South 4 cases, Sunyani East 5, Sunyani West 10. Wenchi is leading the pack with 42 cases, bringing the total to 96 cases. Per the of the Ghana Health Service for the management of COVID-19, 34 have recovered as at 6th July 2020. 8 cases are exhibiting mild symptoms and are in the treatment center.
Amokodie reiterated the spread of the virus will stop if we all keep to the safety protocols while we try to be each other's keeper.
The current trend of cases in the region clearly depicts a local transmission, and therefore it is very important for everyone, and in particular some of those of us who are here and those who are helping us in the fight of COVID-19, to actually be attentive to the safety protocols that have been outlined by the President. We urge you all to be very, very vigilant, and we should be our brother's keeper. We should make sure that we know that some of you here and some people outside do not obey the policies put up by the government. Therefore, we should be our brother's keeper. When you see people gathered without obeying the social distance, we urge you to approach them and give them the necessary advice.
Measures have been put in place to avoid the virus spreading to Tyne, Doma West and East districts, the only districts without confirmed cases in the Bono region.
Well, we were here this morning with the security personnel. So we are going to make sure that we tighten the protocols that have been put in place there, in those places. We should make sure that the social distancing, putting off all masks, avoidance of spitting on the streets, and then the hand washing and hand sanitation. We are going to make sure that all those protocols are well kept. And if you don't have anything doing, you don't come out. And then also we are going to make sure that all people entering those districts are checked before they get into those districts. So if you are symptomatic and you are entering those districts, you will be picked out for testing. These are about a few of the measures that we are going to put in place.
Dr. Kodie is Bono Regional Director of Health. Now, the President of Royal Ladies on NDC Women's Wing in the Northern Region, Sarah Musa, has hit back at critics who have described the recently nominated candidate of the NDC as a novice in the fight for women in Ghana. She says the fight for women is not about how long one has been in the scene, but the impact one has made when given the opportunity. Responding to questions from journalists at a press conference to congratulate Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, Madam Sarah said her time is now and she needs the support of all instead of being chastised. She says the NDC vice presidential candidate has all it takes to fight the cause of women.
Activist, I can get up today to be a gender activist. It doesn't matter when I'm one. So gender activism has no time. The time is now. She's here now and she's one of us and we must support her. That's what I believe in. It has no time. I can get up now, today and this hour to be a gender activist. And those that are already gender activists, and they need to support me because I'm on their way. I'm not out of their way. So they should support her. It is not a matter of she was there and now she's there. It's a matter of supporting her. Let's ask ourselves, is she in a good cause for gender activism? Yes. If it yes, let's support her.
Madam Sarah says it is ironical that Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman is being blamed for the cancellation of allowance at the nursing and teacher training schools, which was to increase enrollment.
Our opponents want Ghanaians to believe, but for me, I don't think it's something that would like prevent people or the training colleges to vote for NDC. What she did was not something that was bad. If you read, like, and understand the reasons why he cancelled the allowances, it was to increase enrollment into the teacher training colleges and nursing training colleges. And besides that, the teacher training college was a diploma awarding institution, but she did that to graduate it to a degree awarding institution. And you know that every university take loans from the Senate. So she said, now that you have been upgraded to a degree awarding institution, there shouldn't be any allowance for you, but you can also go to the Senate to also take Senate loan to help yourself whilst you are in school. I believe the problem was everything. Ghana, we want free things. That one is true. Me, I want free things. But because she introduced that, the training colleges thought that she was denying them the opportunity to take what is due them. But for me, what she did was a good thing. Now, let me ask. They have cut intake of students in training college just because of the allowance. Nobody can deny that fact because the more they take, the more the government will spend much money. So for her doing that was not a bad thing. It was a good thing. Saying that after completion, you wouldn't struggle to get a job again. There was job for you after you complete your teacher training college. But that one, I think we, the students who were then in training colleges, thought it was. Now I believe they are realizing that it was a good thing to introduce.
And that's how we wrap up the Pulse this afternoon. I've indeed enjoyed my almost 2 hours stay with you. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.